Hi GCSE, this is a video podcast on types of practice. So we're going to look at 4 types of practice today using the light board. This is part of lesson 2, sports psychology. So the first type of practice that we're going to look at is called massed practice. Massed practice. This type of practice is when sports are chunked together. So it's quite a continuous form of practice. Whereby you repeat things over and over again and there are no breaks within it. So when we looked at mass practice, it's interesting to look at the good things about, we call them the positive sides of it, and also the negative sides of it. So first of all, the positives, it's really good to try and reinforce the learning. So if you're learning a new skill, mass practice, you just do it over and over and over again until you pick that skill up and it embeds into your sort of motor program and your schema in your mind. So it's really good for novices, it's really good for new skill learning. One of the negative things about it could cause injury potentially by repetition. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, there is a chance it will cause injury, or you could just get really bored, so it could cause boredom. Another good thing about mass practice is it's really good for what we call simple skills. So you remember in the last podcast we had a continuum and we had simple and we had complex at opposite ends of the continuum. This is really good for simple skills. The next form of practice we're going to talk about is distributed, and this is the polar opposite to mass practice. This is when you have breaks, so it's not continuous. You mix it up and you distribute the practice between break intervals. Something else this is really good for is dividing up subroutines. So dividing subroutines. We spoke about subroutines. They are a collection of small skills broken down. So with the tennis serve, we talked about the fact that the toss-up was part of the subroutine, and then it could be the recovery and the striking of the ball, other parts of the subroutine. So within distributed practice, we can break it up and we can divide it and give ourselves intervals. What's quite nice about these intervals is we can potentially watch the footage back of us performing the skill, and we can learn from our mistakes and we can correct any faulty processes that we might have within the skill. A negative aspect of distributed practice is it can become tedious as well, particularly if the breaks are too long. You can kind of lose your attention span and you can break up a little bit. And the other little bit to do with it is mentally it can be quite draining. So it can be positive that it's mentally rehearsed and you do it over and over again with breaks and reflections on those breaks. But also it can become mentally quite exhausting and you can kind of have enough of it and say, I'm done. So the final 2 types of practice are fixed and variable, and again, opposite ends of the continuum. Fixed practice is when you practice the whole skill. We call it whole, part, whole. So you practice the whole skill, then you break it down into constituent parts, which is a variable aspect, and then you go back into the whole skill at the end. The good thing about fixed skill is you can practice it repetitively, and it's best with closed skills. So if you remember, closed skills are things like archery, snooker, darts, where the environment is very closed and external factors can't really affect it that much. It helps develop what we call a motor program, which will be embedded in our brain and our muscle memory, and we'll remember and we'll recall how to perform those actions. So fixed practice is really good for practicing the whole skill. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, we've got variable practice, which is best used for open skills. This allows you to repeat the skill in varying situations. So you might take one skill, like a rugby tackle, and you might put it into different situations. So one-on-one, one-on-two, using tackle bags, using players, and you vary that skill around. So that's very, very good for open skills. It helps build a schema, which is a pattern in your brain to recall muscle movements at a later date. So this is practice in a nutshell. It's quite a short podcast today, but it summarises this part of the GCSE specification which you need to know for your course. Thank you.